welcome to Crafts and Crime. I'm Amy.
I'm Elaine.
And as always, we have a craft and a crime.
For now.
Yeah. I was thinking about that when I did my 2 cases back to back. I was like, oh, do you just want to do a case? We could just do a bunch of cases. But I'm like, no, because I have crafts I can
I think eventually we've kind of talked about this a little bit, which is like we might have to do like days that we do 2 crimes. We both do 2 crimes. Mm-hmm. And then the next one we'll do our craft and crime. Then maybe we'll do 2 crimes and swap off. I think that may be the format until we can start recording our crafts and examples and projects for everybody. And then that will be the filler. That'll be like...
Yeah. And we've also talked about like revisiting some of it and doing like a combined research, I don't know.
Yeah.
Ooh, excuse me.
I can't imagine wanting to talk about my project again.
Yeah. I have one that I'm like, ooh, I could add more. Because as I'm like doing other stuff, I'm like, dang it, I could have added that. But then I'm like, nah. We could do a sum up of like a few of like, remember this and it goes with this. And then it was like that.
This? Yeah. Remember when I didn't update the Instagram to this?
Yeah.
Because if you like, it is ridiculous of trying to take pictures away and add pictures.
Yeah.
Like, so I'm sure if I've forgotten stuff, I'm like, I'll add to it later.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's always Crystal that's like, you said you were going to put this. I'm
yes.
like, what? Shut up.
I know. Somebody always catches it. It's her or one of her friends. But I mean, we need that. At least somebody's paying attention because it's not us.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Well, my brother helped us with the audio, the intro audio.
Don't tell anybody there was something wrong with it.
If you know, then you know. But if not, then it's nothing really changed. But it was like, he's an audio person. He produces music and stuff, so he could hear. Like, he just has an ear for things, and so he's like, let me fix it. So when he came over, he was like, done. I'm like, okay. Like, I don't know what you did, but thanks. So
it's done now.
I know. But
speaking of ears for music.
Oh yeah. Duh.
No, that's funny. We were just talking
about the kids because the girls did a violin class through their homeschool charter school, and
we're just not loving the format.
No, and so we were talking.
I can't believe it didn't occur to us earlier, which kind of blows. But that's okay.
Then we were talking about like private lessons, and I was like, oh, we should just do, because we can use school funds for that, and so I was on the Facebook group for the school and saw this company that does private lessons, and everyone has graduated from Berkeley. And so I, looked into it. And
they're all music graduates.
Yeah. And the first 30-minute trial session is free for charter students. So I signed Avery up for violin to see how she likes it, because they also have piano, they have voice, they have like everything.
Yeah.
And then Troy couldn't decide between bass or electric guitar. And so I was like, you know what? Let's just start with bass, because it's the same teacher for electric guitar. So you could take both if you really like him. It's crazy when like I was reading the profile of his, let me find it real quick since we're talking about it. I was reading the profile of his guitar or his bass guitar teacher. Yeah,
I think I remember the lead-in of the article was like, we have people that are Grammy nominated.
Yes.
Like, they're fancy. These are professionals, and it's so affordable. But it's because of our school, because of our homeschool charter. Okay. It's affordable.
So his tutor, it's pulling up. Sorry, Joey Farber. He's graduated Berklee College of Music, multi-instrumentalist and singer, specializing in electric bass, piano, and guitar. At the age of 7, he began performing with his parents, both of whom are Grammy nominated.
That's fun.
And have composed for TV and film, as well as recording and performing with artists including Billy Joel, John Bon Jovi, and Greg Allman. And so his tutor, he's made jingles. He's appeared on the David Letterman show and Saturday Night Live, where he sang with Paul McCartney.
That's fun.
So it's like he began his career at Berklee College of Music. He majored in contemporary writing and production. So he studied with all these people. So it's like all of the teachers are like this. They're all like well-known and they're good. And they only take a select number of students to keep it, good quality, so the teachers aren't
so
like
that you're not
burned
full.
out. Yeah, and so I can't even remember how many students they say that they accept for this private tutoring. It was in the email. It was, oh, maybe not. I can't remember. It wasn't a lot of kids, so oh, maybe it was on their website. Whatever, it doesn't matter. But oh, maybe on About Us. With all that to say, yeah, my kids are gonna do those, and then Lenore, you said, hasn't figured out what she wants to do yet.
No, I signed her up, and then we had a talk, and I'm thinking she wants to swap instruments, which I'm fine with. I'm not gonna force her to play something she hates, because what kind of productivity is that gonna come about? So, but I need to she has to make a decision. So I'm thinking she probably wants to guitar. So I'm going to talk to the coordinator that messaged me today and just be like, hey, can we swap over instruments? And yeah,
that's usually not a problem with the with instruments, because like we've got Troy's bass guitar and stuff. It doesn't really matter. It's just like, oh, she's interested in this. And that's the nice thing about the school is you could just kind of, go around and just see, like, I don't know what I want to do. And so maybe I want guitar, maybe I want bass guitar, maybe I want violin or cello or whatever. And so you can. Yeah,
I'm going to definitely have to get we can't keep these instruments that we get from the school.
No.
So I'm going to have to, they'll give me like a label and everything. And then I get to box it up and send it back and get a guitar.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can keep the violin if she wanted to keep it.
Yeah.
Until she is done.
I'm
with
not
the school.
sure if she would. It'd just be one more thing for a cat to pee on.
Yeah. So Avery seems interested in it. She seems to be doing okay. And then when Colin came over, he's like, oh, I remember how to play. And he tried. Fun. And I was like, I know how to play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. That's like it. And so yeah, we'll see. I know Avery wants to play guitar, and she gets mad because she's like, try, because Troy knows how to play. I know how to play. Maybe I'll just teach her. But she has Brad's old acoustic guitar. Troy has my old acoustic guitar, and he has his own bass and own electric guitar. So we got a lot of guitars. And then we have like 3 violins, because I have one in the garage. We
have a bass, and we have Lenore's violin. And a friend of mine was going to send me a violin for Lenore, but I'm just going to be like, there's no point now.
Yeah. Well, she has one.
I mean, if she wants to, she can, but I'm going to make sure I let her know. I'm like, you don't have to now. I think we're going in a different direction. Yeah, it's really, I think the reason why, like I had told her, I was like, oh, come on, I want you to stay. Because her last year of public school, she did like 6 months of violin, and she was really good. And she got to do like a performance with her class at the high school down the road. And her teacher had given her these like award medals and stuff because she had done so well in such a short amount of time. And she has like 0 muscle memory. And I was like, yeah, I think she's trying to let me know. She's like, I'm kind of done with it.
Yeah.
And I was like, dang it, you were good though. But it's really not a big deal. Like what? I'm not going to achieve anything forcing her to play an instrument she hates. It's not something necessary to life.
No.
And they're in drawing club right now too. It's not like they don't do her artistic. Yeah, and that's totally fine.
Because not everybody is like musically inclined.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think, well, I come from
I can't crochet.
But I come from a long line of musicians. So our whole family has always, well, this is on my dad's side more so. So my granddad was a musician, and my uncle and my dad, and my granddad was, I think I've told you this before. He was, he played banjo.
Yeah.
Until he lost his picking fingers.
Yeah.
Because, he lost, I can't remember if it was these 2 or these. He died when I was like 10 or something like that, 10 or 11. I was young, or maybe 9. I don't know. But he died, and then my granddad died, and then my grandma died. But yeah, so I was just talking to my mom about this yesterday, because we were like, oh, do you remember grandma's auto harp? Because my grandma played piano. My granddad played guitar, banjo. My dad played piano. Like, it's just, we could play multiple instruments. I can play guitar, bass, piano. Suck at the violin, but I could try. I could play a damn good recorder. And
look at these hot cross bun skills.
Yeah, or the ocarina. Remember that?
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so it's runs in my family, and my brother, like I said, he produces music and stuff. But so it's no surprise to me that like Troy naturally picked up the guitar and stuff, and then Avery maybe she would be good with piano lessons. Has Lenore said piano lessons? I can't remember.
Yeah, she would. And I was like, okay, well, we just got rid of your keyboard. It was like a little kiddie one.
Yeah.
I was like, we just got rid of your keyboard. And she's been talking about guitar a lot longer than I've heard her mention piano. So I'm going to talk to her about that. And like, I just got done with a meeting a little while ago with her teacher, and we were talking about, like, I have up to $300 I can use to buy the guitar and stuff. Maybe you could try to look back if you can see where you got Troy's from, if I can get a bundle again.
We didn't go through the school for his guitar. We found a special through Fender, not a vendor.
Okay.
Fender had a huge deal.
I love that.
And so that's where we got his electric guitar, and like I said, his acoustic and Avery's acoustic.
Was it the
one's
bass
mine,
from school?
The bass was from school, yes.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay.
And then so you can get her like a keyboard, like Avery has. I don't know that you could get the stand, but you could get the keyboard. Yeah, so we need to figure out what music they're gonna do. But like I said, this vendor that we found, they do everything.
Yeah.
And so
I'm gonna message them as soon as we're done. I have to get on that, and then you have to show me some paper I have to sign.
Yeah, the waiver. So yeah, so we got to figure out music. But I don't know if you saw, Malibu, there was a 4.5 earthquake just now, like just before we started.
Weird.
Literally just before we started, I opened up Facebook.
Crazy. Was it when I was walking over? So I probably wouldn't have felt it because I was outside.
I don't know, but it
then you always think, you're like, did I feel a rumble?
I know. Half the time it's just my kids running through. But yeah, so today is the day that we are recording. Hawaii had a really big earthquake today. So today is Friday the 9th? 10th? 9th?
The 9th.
Okay, yeah. So of February. And because I don't remember when this comes out, but Hawaii got a 5.7, and then Malibu got a 4.6 today. So 4.6 as of like 40 minutes ago. Yeah, like 40 minutes ago.
Wow.
I gotcha. So yeah, see, 4.6. And then at first it was a 4.5, and then it was upgraded to a 4.6. Usually they're downgraded, but this one was big. So Malibu's pretty close to us. It's over by LA more so. So we're kind of far away.
Who the heck did I see? Did you see today?
Oh, my microphone keeps moving.
That there was like, oh my gosh, I can't find it. It's going to take me too long. There's like volcanoes exploding all over too.
Oh, yeah. Wasn't there that one in Hawaii? Well, Hawaii's had a bunch of earthquakes today. So I'm like, oh my gosh.
I know. I'm not sure. I think there were some, maybe because there's always volcanoes and shit there, but I think it was like Iceland or something was exploding.
Oh, yeah.
There's
Again?
like a bunch.
There's like another one. I know
like,
there's that.
Come on now. Time to stock up on ramen noodles. Just kidding.
Toilet paper.
I still have like 5 or 6 giant cheese wheels from COVID.
Yeah.
I literally had people rolling their eyes at me, and I was like, okay, fine, have fun. I didn't want to have to do this. There's no fucking toilet paper.
Oh, I couldn't find toilet paper anywhere. So it was like, get me the cheap stuff. Get me the wet wipes, whatever. I'm like, there's 6 of us here. Like, it was ridiculous.
I spent $75, and I got this huge box, and it had like 12 or 20 of those like industrial size ones that go in like restrooms.
Paper thin.
It's better than wiping shit with your hand.
Yep.
And I ended up giving some to my daughter's mom and saved them from not having toilet paper because they couldn't find any out where they live. I gave my neighbor it was funny because everyone was rolling their eyes, and I was like, I saved like 5 families in my apartment complex that couldn't find toilet paper, and I still have extra. But if I hadn't bought it, if I hadn't bought it, nobody would have been able to wipe their butt. I would 3 separate families.
We thankfully at that time we
had Costco.
Lily was still well, Link and Lily were still in diapers, and so they were cloth diapered, so I didn't have to worry about that. And then we also had a bidet, so it was really like we were fine. But I was like, seriously, we can't find any toilet paper? So I was like, I guess just get whatever's there.
I remember the baby wipes. You had issues with baby wipes too,
and so we found some wet wipes, and we still have some of those, but I was like, I can't find anything like
it was
at all.
Weird.
Let's hope that's
15
not
15 minutes.
Seriously. Sorry. Talking about music and earthquakes and toilet paper.
We talk all day, but we still have other stuff to talk
you're
about.
First. That's right. I'm like, what is happening? I'm all like combobulated.
Sorry, my husband texted me and I was laughing.
Oh, what, is he on his way home? Oh,
no,
early.
no.
Like it's early.
No, he was needing me to do an Instacart and he was making a joke and I laughed. Okay.
So you're doing the craft.
Yeah. Minecraft. I went back and forth. I do this like every single time I start doing the research, and I was like, oh, I don't want to do this no more. It's not fun.
Yeah.
And then sometimes some of them just end up becoming so scientific. I'm typing late and I'm like, no.
Yeah.
So my craft is kites.
Oh, fun.
So did you ever make a kite when you were a kid? Try to do some new. Yeah.
Yep.
Fun. I love it. So
we have kites in the garage that have been there for like 8 years.
Lenore and I just got to fly. It was Lenore's very first time flying a kite last summer. Yeah, when we went to my parents. We went to the beach. And of course, because it was the Pacific Northwest, it was raining and cold and windy and terrible. But actually at this moment, it was like what my grandma called chisping, which I didn't know was a real word. It was like sprinkly misty, and Lenore flew a kite and like so well and for so long. She was like thrilled. I got so many pictures. And then I flew a kite for a minute. It was like, this is hard.
Yeah. Yeah, we my parents have a house in Newport Beach, California, and
sorry. We were just my sister just texted me. I know you might still be in a meeting or recording. Did you feel an earthquake?
Oh, we just talked about it. No, we didn't feel it. No. But my parents have a house out there, and it's like in a big complex, and there's a park.
Like I don't know. I'm like, you're telling them, not me.
Yeah. There's a park, and it has a huge like grassy area, and it's like kind of on a bluff, and so the wind is like perfect there for kites. And so we took like 2 or 3 kites and stood on that like bluff area and flew kites, and it was fun. But yeah, it's so an fun arm workout, and then you don't want to get them all tangled, and then
you have to reel it in, and we didn't think like I needed gloves for this, because I'm getting rope burn.
So
seriously.
Okay.
So
sorry, I didn't mean to go
no,
off
it's totally fine. We do it every time. I really I liked doing the research on this, and it's funny how we always just end up coming back to like it's our craft, and one day we will make a kite for everybody. And I think that's kind of our plan. I think is what we talked about too, is we'll eventually kind of try to test out the ones that are realistic, and that will be like our little videos. I think that'll be fun. Yeah, and like in-depth tutorials will be on our Patreon. Yeah. So kites have been used for thousands of years, and I found out some crazy stuff, and I was like, get out of here. So probably around 3,000 years, but there's no real definitive like hard proof of the first area of origin, but we all think it's from China. Of course it all is. They're geniuses. But evidence has also been pointed towards other cultures in the South Pacific, Indonesia, and Malaysia. So think like coastal is where the best wind is anyway.
I was just talking about that. Like,
exactly.
Best wind.
Exactly. It really is. I used to go to kite festivals at that same beach, very close by as a kid every year, and it was really, really fun. I've never been super good at flying a kite, but also I'm always afraid I'm going to crash it and hit somebody when there's like a lot of people around. It makes me
because it's just nervous. Like nosedives. It's just like like
exactly. So, here is our fun: the anatomy of a kite. A kite typically consists of, but not always, it will have its wings, what is called spars, tethers, anchors, a bridle, and a tail. Okay. So in a basic diamond kite, which most of us have known, that's kind of the kind we talk about, what the spar part, I'll break down these pieces. Your spar is your rigidity, your pole that's going to go. So there's a vertical and a horizontal spar. Now, your bridle is the thin type of material, which in ancient times, it would be extremely strong. Silk, cording, we use fishing line, basically plastic filament line. And it's going to connect to each of these edge points, or what would be steering points if they're really huge kites. And each of these pieces, let's say for a diamond, there's going to be one on each corner. So you have 4. And those will come together and be gathered into the middle. And in modern times, we use, like, I'm trying to think of like a name that I'm like, I know in beading, a crimp. Think of a little metal tube, and it's squished and pinched with pliers. And these pieces are all pulled together, crimped together, and that's called the bridle. Just like in a horse, where all the pieces come together and attached in a single area. And then comes down from the bridle point is called, it's your knot is your anchor.
Okay.
Sometimes those anchors are totally stable, and sometimes they're not. They have like a little spinner. And the spinners are 2 pieces. I'm like making all these little the spinners look like a figure 8. And the middle pivots around another little metal pole. So they can spin individually. That's where like stunt kites come in, where they can like twist and stuff.
Yeah. I was just thinking about that. I'm like, man, thinking about some of these crazy kites.
Seriously. I'm like, no. And the line that we hold is called our fly, the main fly line. And then the tail at the bottom helps to balance with stability, just like an animal. Even though in my brain, I'm like, I don't know how, but it does. I don't get it, but... So, our tether is where the fly lines, those cords connect to our anchor point, which is like a handle, you know. So, you know, they don't call them just the handle, because I'm gonna get to this, you will have multiple tether points, because there'll be several people that are controlling one single kite.
Okay.
Like a sky puppet.
Yeah.
Most of the writings that give the best evidentiary support and credence to the invention of kites being in China was written in 200 BC with General Han, Hsin. I'm thinking it's like Xin. Of the Han Dynasty. I love this. This is so crazy. I love so many of these. He would fly fly a kite as far as he needed. I totally realized I have gum in my mouth. I'm sorry. To reach enemy lines. So he would fly this kite all the way over. Thank you. So I can put my gun away. It's like I'm in school getting in trouble. Yeah. And then he would be able to reel the kite back, and realized how much tunneling space would have to be dug from one encampment to pop up to the other side for a sneak attack.
That's crazy.
I know, right? In
smart.
I know, seriously.
It's like sky ruler.
Yeah, seriously. And it's crazy because they were insane. These kites would end up being made so far across, so huge. Multiple soldiers would have to man these kites, and they would bring up a soldier on a kite, and they would lift them up so they could find for what kind of distance they were having to go. They could donate, they could throw bombs, it's crazy. It is crazy.
Do not volunteer.
No, thank you.
Sounds awful.
I know, it
sounds scary.
It's like the oldest version of parasailing.
Yeah.
And parachuting is essentially done with a kite.
Yeah.
So, here is another that worked out really well, and I love. There's evidence written in 549. It's such an odd number. 549. A kite was flown to deliver a message that led a huge successful rescue mission. So they like flew it. It's crazy. There's not enough like information, but you know, it's magical.
There's a kite involved.
Exactly. And that their earliest known kite shape was actually a rectangle, and it didn't have a bow. Now, when I refer to a bow, I think I just do a couple other times. When we make, say, our diamond, because that's just the easiest for me.
Yeah.
The framework, it intersects, and that's part of the point. You want that tension that kind of arches it, and it helps make a scoop, and it catches the wind. So their rectangles were just a super thin,
just a frame
piece. Yes, they were a frame of rice paper, and it came from.
I don't see how that would work.
I literally have no idea. It's the weirdest thing. They would use tails, and it would connect, but one of the things is that you don't need wind for a kite, you need lift, you need leverage. It has to come up. You need it to just be able to catch drag. I'm like showing my hand. I'm like, all you have to do is a lot of yanking. It's like you have to pop it back and forward, and eventually it hits up like to where the drag
getting a kite up, you have to like run. You kind of have to like yank it.
You're popping it. Wink, wink, wink. This is a lot of gesticulation.
It's us just like making hand gestures at each other.
Like y'all see it. Seriously. One of my favorite parts is that for fun, they would attach whistles to their kites so that they would make little sounds when they would go up high enough. And I love that.
It's like when it's really windy and you hold a harmonica up and it like just...
Yeah, we got to do it. So when kites made their way over to India during not much longer after that, so it's the same, it's like under 1000 BC. Mm-hmm. I love this so much. All these, I'm like, I love this. It's so cool. They were the ones that developed a new hobby and sport. Was they developed fighter kites.
Okay.
Now these kites would be in a diamond shape, like our diamond shaped kites that we know of most of the time now that are super simple. And they would be covered, certain parts of the bow and the edging would have a line that would run across them. And all I got was abrasive. So I'm like, they coated it probably in resin and broken glass. I mean, you know, as I talked about, glass has been around forever. An abrasive media, and then these kites were flown up together and they would perform stunts and dip dodges and dives from each other while trying to take that piece of line that runs across the kite and destroy the other kite. So either cut that other person's line completely. I'm guessing if you cut the line, you get more points.
Yeah.
And if you like nick it, or you could like chop up their kite.
Talk about skill.
I was like, fun.
Yeah, that'd be fun to watch. But
seriously, so we're just thinking it's like bare knuckle boxing with masking tape and glass, but it's kites.
Yeah.
So like nobody's getting hurt, just kites.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's fun. A weird violent sport that nobody gets hurt.
It's like the robot things where they just like see whose robot's better.
Yes, battle bots.
Yeah. Okay, that's what it's called. I'm like, you know, the fighter.
It used to be
it
used to be a show on TV on like the Spike channel or something.
Yeah.
During this same time, all of this is happening before the 13th century. So I love that. How many times am I going to say I love this? But it's always fun because we end up finding out something I never looked at the history of kites.
Yeah.
At the same time in Polynesia and New Zealand, anthropomorphic kites, which funny, I talked about that a little bit back with taxidermy. So these were more like animals, deities.
That's what I was thinking. Like
these were started at this point. They took over their anthropomorphic, where we started branching out, making butterfly kites and stuff like that, because they would use theirs to fly their prayers up to the gods. I think that's super cute.
What about like, I'm sorry if you're going to get into it, but like dragons?
Yes,
like
I will a little bit.
Okay, because that's what I'm picturing when you said like, you know, animals and stuff or whatever. And I'm like, oh, like the dragon kites and stuff. Yeah,
because basically every country ended up having their own kite and their own kite festival because they were so fun and beautiful. And I know that in Asia, they've done those lanterns for forever. So they knew that even a square frame could lift itself up if it was light enough. Europe was actually kind of last to the kite excitement, which is, you know, kind of surprising actually. But Romans, they had their own kind of a kite. Think of it more of like what we consider a windsock.
Okay.
So, and they use theirs for decorative banners. Yes, for war, but also just as decoration. So it was a singular thing that just could catch it and kept up, but not flying, needing to be controlled. Marco Polo seems to have actually brought the excitement of kites and their stories of kites from across the world around the 13th century. But it became more widespread in the 16th and 17th century because sailors were now coming back and forth from Japan and Malaysia. Holland and England were very last on the kite train. At the end of the 17th century, pretty much children were the only ones that were using kites. They weren't, how many times, God, can you imagine if it was a drinking game with the word kite? Everyone would be hammered. They were flying them for fun. They weren't used for anything crazy or fancy over there at that moment. And they were a simple diamond without the bow or a pear-shaped a pear-shaped kite, and it was just necessarily meant for children. In 1749, what is considered to be the first scientific experiment documented took place with a kite by Alexander Wilson and Thomas Melville in Scotland. They used a kite for the first time. I have such a hard time saying this word, and I don't realize it till I have to. Meteorologic. There we go. A meteorologic device used as, which is hilarious because I just said getting on the kite train, but that's actually a thing. A kite train is when more than one kite is tied to the single tether line.
Okay.
So you could put 12 of them on one, and one person maybe could use it, but multiples technically. So Alexander and Thomas both flew this kite train on a single line, and it was used to test temperature from different altitudes.
Oh.
So they could tell the temperatures. I'm guessing, imperial evidence. You just keep practicing, but they would also tie thermometers.
Oh, okay.
This was the way that meteorology was done. They would carry thermometers up and test at those different levels.
Interesting.
And so also, as we know, hot air and cold air push differently. When they converge, it makes thunder.
That's what I was thinking.
They're probably going to notice, well, if the two kites are flying together, away. Science magic. And only 3 years later, in June of 1752, what is pretty well known in most places is our most famous kite experiment done by Benjamin Franklin. It had been so long since I've been in school. I was like, is that what happened? And so like a quick breakdown of that in case you don't know, which this was not new to me, but it was like a refresher. Him and his son were flying a kite during a thunder and lightning storm, and the end of the kite had a small wire rod on it. And when lightning struck that wire rod, it came down, and the reason him and his son weren't immediately electrocuted was he had tied a key to his tether, and the key conducted all the electricity. How many times does someone have to get electrocuted to find that out?
I know.
I mean, it just had to be, I bet you it had to do with like friction, shock. It had smart enough people. I'm like, I would never, but they had to just like, I got shocked when I touched the metal. Amazing.
I get shocked so often.
It's so dry right now. All my clothes come out of the dryer
after that
stuck
huge,
together.
Well, that storm, but still, it's like
it's so dry in the air now. It's freakish. So when he did this, it was magical. He was able to let everybody know that lightning was electricity. Why do they come up with these names? And that it was not the wrath of gods, because at this point they still thought that it was. And so at this point, the lightning rod was invented because of him, and that led to a lot of these buildings not burning down forever because they discovered if it would exactly. So, and because if it's not something in the forefront of your mind, you don't think of like back then they had thatched roofs made of straw and small thin strips of wood as shingling and things. A fire is going to burn down half your town. Like it's going to keep going. They don't. So it really changed the fire risk for a lot of people. But then there were a lot of people that was like, this is the devil. I'm not doing that. So while kites were used to lift man throughout time, like what I had mentioned with, war, they used it. And they also used kites throughout history when they realized that men could be lifted up, what we now know as like parachuting. And I had mentioned that, and so they were just like, I'm like, they're jumping off cliffs with these things, and they're like, I got it with a bomb, it's bananas. So again, I love this one. It's my favorite use of a kite up to this point. It's hilarious. George Pocock of the UK in 1822, he used 2 large arch top kites. So I'm trying to think I can't put a picture of every single kite, but for us, we know those as the kite that's used in parasailing. Yeah. The big rainbow, and it has like 2 pulleys on each side. And so 2 large arch top kites, that's hard to say fast, and he used them to pull his carriage. He called it his char volant, and it could go about 20 miles per hour on a good day. He did this to avoid paying a road toll because it was charged per horse. Because the wear and tear of your horse's shoes on roads, picking up, someone would pick up poop, So he got out of that by a loophole of flying kites to pull his carriage. I love it. It's so funny.
It's a wind-powered carriage.
Yes. And it cracks me up. I was like, that's totally like
Could
some
you imagine
Miss
seeing
Frizzle.
that? Like, what the heck?
Seriously. He's a genius, and the whole town thought he was probably crazy.
Yeah, they're like, look at that kook.
And in 1899, as a lot... Again, I'm always like, because we grew up here in North America, I wonder... how everyone else is taught these things, because I try not to make assumptions, but so in 1899 Orville and Wilbur Wright discovered what would become an airplane in the future because of accidentally being lifted up with a kite, because they loved it and they were like avid kite flyers and they were scientific and extremely smart, and they developed what was a warping kite, which is the arch kite I was just explaining, but on a huge scale. And what they had changed and developed was that their wings could flex and put your hands side to side and like pinch and just twist them in opposite directions. The wings could do this, and therefore that led to easier turning and maneuverability. They were the first to do this on a large scale, and then eventually they got to hang gliding.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so scary.
Like,
no way. I would jump out of an airplane before I would hang glide, probably.
I wouldn't do either.
Probably never will. And so then from hang gliding, they added engines, and this is kites, not airplanes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that. So and then kites were still used all the way up until World War I for enemy observations, and I kind of love this too, because they would communicate through like different dive tricks, and like, so think of like football and like blue 22.
Yeah.
It was like Morse code with airplanes, kites.
Kites, yeah.
And they could also, some kites were developed to hold up to 300 pounds. These war kites.
Jeez.
So they could carry bombs and ammunitions and supplies and like and drop them. Like,
that's crazy.
I'm like, would they cut the line? Was that the point? I didn't get to that part because that would have been a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
So, and then we move 50 years up-ish, and in the 1980s, sports kite. Golly, Bob, howdy. We've been talking a lot today already. Yeah. Sport kite flying took off because of the new developments in windbreaker material.
Yeah.
That sweet swish, swish, swish. So that is rip fast polyester. And they also had come out with better and more lightweight fiberglass. And this was being developed to be able to make the rods lighter, more like bird bones.
Yeah.
If you don't know, bird bones are completely hollow. That's why birds are so fragile. And so they're unable to fly and have no control of their booties. That's why they poop all the time. They have to, or they can't fly.
Yeah.
And so these rods are, they're so hollow. And because of that, that took off of speed, height, on a scale that the average person could afford, and didn't have to like engineer their own kite, to the point where, I mean, again, I'm not sure out here. I don't, when I go to the beach out here, the whole time I've lived here, I never really went shopping a ton, but in the Pacific Northwest, it's just like the beach, we call it the coast, has kite stores everywhere.
Yeah.
I'm like, it would make sense. So, it's kind of funny because in the end, like I said, you realize kite flying is hard when you have the kind of wind it takes to get like the crazy lift. And I only did it for like 20 minutes. And then I was here, Lenore, like, I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
Have fun until you're done. Because trying to reel it in, excuse me, it's like, it burns.
Yeah.
I didn't have gloves. I'm like, what are there, like special fingerless gloves for this?
Kite gloves.
Exactly. So I have some fun facts, like we kind of tend to round up here. And here's where I'm going to get into the Japanese dragon kites.
Okay.
So one of the fun facts about this is that some of the largest Japanese dragon kites weigh 2 tons. How do you get 2 tons into the air? Can you imagine like 1,000 people running at one time?
Crazy.
So 2 tons, and the longest have measured at over 2,000 feet long.
That's crazy.
Or 600 meters. So we're talking, I'm sorry, it didn't give me tons in stone.
Yeah.
In September of 1989 in Ocean City, Maryland, a man named Pete DiGiacomo flew a kite that was faster than any kite has ever flown at, again, and I'm like, how do they judge this? It's got to be the person's like calculating the wind speed and distance. I'm like, God, 120 miles per hour or nearly 200 kilometers an hour.
Imagine holding on to that.
That would suck. You have to be so strong.
Seriously.
The highest single kite fly that has ever flown up was 12,471 feet.
Wow.
Or 3,801 meters.
Crazy.
And the longest kite fly was 180 hours.
Oh, what?
So I'm thinking you probably had to tie it down and fall asleep and wake up and like twink twink.
By one person, or maybe between a few people?
I don't know. It was just like I popped around a couple websites to get fun facts. So I'm like, that's
thinking like how like the wind fluctuates so much. Like you had that.
Well, like what's 180 hours, 24, 24, 48, 48, and 48 would be 60.
Don't ask me to do
66,
math.
and then 72.
Yeah, it would have to be like multiple people.
Yeah, that's like a week. I don't know.
Wait,
maybe if they knew
long?
a windstorm was coming. 180 hours. Let me Google that part.
No, just math.
No, not that part.
Oh.
I'm going to see who. Just math.
It's 7.5 days.
See, I said a week. I was right.
Yeah. I just typed in my calculator.
Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to look this up. If I find it, you can go.
Because now
I'm all done. The end.
No. Okay, well, I'm fine. No. No, I was just thinking like it has to be multiple people because that's crazy.
See.
We always say this. I'm like, I gotta get Troy's Guinness Book World Record. Book of Guinness World Records book. Guinness. My gosh, that book. I need to get it because I'm sure
the Guinness Book of World Record.
Yes.
Let's see. Here we go. I found it.
Yay.
Endurance is key. This is from the dailystar.net. The article is 5 kites that made records. Finally, we turn to the fortitude. How long have you flown a kite realistically? If your answer is maybe an hour, then this next record will definitely impress you. An enthusiastic team from Edmonds Community College in the USA.
Of course, it's college kids.
Set the world record back in August of 1982 for the longest continuous flight of a kite by a group of people. Here we go. See what happens if you look, Elaine? They held the flying kite for a whopping 180 hours and 17 minutes. The entire project took a week to organize. Well, obviously, you did the math. And they took turns in holding the kite to make the record.
That's crazy.
Weird. I still have a feeling nobody slept that much.
No. And it's one of those, like, you hope you have a good team.
Oh my God.
You know, being in group projects.
Freaking
like,
Todd, lazy ass Todd didn't show up to hold his kite for an hour.
Wow, that was interesting. As you were like talking, because we talked about this before. Well, I think this episode, I can't remember. It's all blending in where it's like, oh, we're going to run out of stuff to talk about. No, eventually, I was thinking about this the other day. Eventually, the craft part is going to turn it into like how it's made. We're just going to turn
That's kind of what it is now.
It is, but it's like, oh, I want to talk about bowling balls.
I know. I'm like, I made a kite in Girl Scouts when I was a kid. I don't even think it worked, but I still tried. So
pretty much like everything around us is made, and there are craftsmen. It had to start somewhere, so we're just going to do.
Yeah, I mean, kites turned out to be turned into things for like NASA. I mean, and so I mean, weather balloons is just a balloon kite.
Yeah,
with helium,
a
balloon kite. You know, because they lift up things. They lift up those boxes and then they pop eventually.
I can't remember because tomorrow's Chinese New Year. Do they do kites? I know they do the people on the with the dragon, but I don't know if they do the kites. I can't remember. Because that's what popped in my mind when you were saying. I'm like, oh, how fitting tomorrow as the day of recording. Tomorrow's Chinese New Year, and we are both the year of the dragon. So that's why I was thinking. It was on my mind. Yep. So,
which is the strongest animal of the zodiac outside of the tiger, because the tiger's real and the dragon is not real.
Yeah, I'm a dragon and a Taurus. I'm a dragon. You're the dragon, but I'm a Taurus.
Yep, I'm a dragon and a Virgo.
Yeah, it explains a lot. No, I'm kidding.
I'm an insufferable know-it-alls. That's what we both are. We are the, let me Google it, because I don't believe you.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why we have this very informative podcast, because
seriously,
I like to, well, I was just talking about that with Troy of like, and Colin, because Colin took Troy camping, and then he was like trying to tell Troy, like, you never stop learning, you're always learning something. I was telling Colin, I'm like, yeah, I think that's why we do so well with our research, because it's like, once you get into it, it's like, wow, I actually enjoy learning stuff. And so it's like, and then I want to tell people about it. It's like, oh, look what I found out. And
yeah. And I mean, you know, we are so far out of our high school days.
I know.
That I was like, oh, Benjamin Franklin. I'm like, because the thing was, like, I didn't stay in high school in the same way. I went back and forth between, like, essentially homeschooling. And so I'm like, I don't remember this shit. This was not what they were working on. They were just trying to get me to, like, finish.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't remember that. I'm sure I didn't pay attention, but so it's fun because I'm relearning it. But yeah, I mean, in general, I never looked up anything about kites, and I don't fly kites all the time or anything, and I just did for the first time in like 20 years probably. But you know, a lot of these, I'm like, I do a lot of craft projects, but then at the same time, like, a lot of the ones that I've covered have got me into like, damn it, tax time is coming up, and I'm gonna be buying stuff to make videos for you guys, because I'm like, I want to do this anyway. So and it gives us something to do.
I know. We have work stuff that we've been working on. Yep. So things are going to be happening.
Yes.
The next thing happening is
ruining everybody's day.
Yeah. Sorry. Now, this case, you, as I was listening to it and researching it, I totally remembered this case. It didn't happen that long ago, but we'll see. It's more around like early 2000s. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like 2008, 2009. So this is...
We keep saying, like, this was so recent. It wasn't.
I know.
It fucking hurts.
But it's just, we were adults, so it's like, it's in our adult life.
It is so shitty, though, because I'm like, the body brokering, I did the same thing. I was like, oh, it wasn't that long ago, 2013. That was 11 years. That was like, hello.
Yeah, so this happened, like, Troy was still a baby. So, I know, it was just yesterday, right? Exactly, I mean, he's not turning 18 yet. Next year he is. So anyways, this is recent-ish.
Okay.
So this is the case of the Coleman family. So this actually starts with Joyce Meyer and her ministry in Illinois. Joyce is a public figure and a televangelist that shares her Christian faith in through her ministry, TV shows, YouTube, podcasts, like all of that. According to the website, because I wanted to get the description of what her ministry is, it says, quote, through the teachings and calling God has given to Joyce Meyer Ministries is dedicated to sharing God's love and life-changing message of the Bible with the word through TV, radio, various media productions, live conferences, and this website.
Okay.
So her ministry generates more than $100 million a year. Wow. And this is through like donations and sponsors, or, you know. So because of this, she's a well-known figure, public figure. She had personal security. Okay. And so her team was led by 32-year-old ex-Marine Chris Coleman. And this job's perfect for him because not only was the pay great at $100,000.
Oh, well, I mean, with the money she's bringing in, come on now.
So she wanted someone, you know, he's ex-military, or, you know, he's a Marine. So he also had a young family, so it's just like perfect for him. And he grew up with a religious background. His father was a pastor. So basically for this job, you know, great guy, perfect for the job. He has all the qualifications, including just, you know, being religious himself.
Okay.
So in fall 2008, things get a little scary for not only Joyce Meyer and her staff, but Chris specifically. Everyone started getting these threatening emails, and some of them were targeting Chris and his family specifically. So the email address that the emails were sent from, because you could see the emails, you know, I looked them up, and of course there's some stuff redacted, but the email address was destroychris@gmail.com.
How original.
That's where these emails were coming from.
They wanted you to know where it was coming from.
So, but it was sent to Joyce, and like the threats, but to him targeting him too.
Okay.
So one of the lines in one of these emails titled, this is the title of the email, it's Chris's family, they are dead.
Ooh.
And in it, it says, during the Houston, so this is quote from the actual email, it says, during the Houston conference, I will kill them all as they sleep.
Whoa.
If I don't hit there, then I will kill them during the book tour or the trip to India.
Oh my gosh.
So Chris told ministry staff about the emails, and then he also told his neighbor, Justin Barlow, because he's not only a neighbor and a friend, but he's a local police officer. So it's kind of like, hey, this is happening. It's really weird.
Yeah.
So because of this, Joyce Meyer Ministries increased their security since all these emails were like within their company, to these people in their company. And then in April of 2009, Chris Coleman and his family found a threatening letter in their mailbox.
Creepy. That means they're going to your house. Ew.
Yeah. So in the letter, it says, quote, this is your last warning. Your worst nightmare is about to happen, in all caps. There's more to the letter, but that's just one of the things in there. So there was no postmark. So it means that it was hand delivered into the mailbox. Then, so this happens, April 2009, and he lets work know, like everyone kind of knows, like, okay, somebody's targeting the family, whatever.
Yeah.
So on May 5th, 2009, just before sunrise, Chris goes to the gym, and then like after about an hour or so, he calls his neighbor, and the police officer, Justin Barlow, and he's panicking because he hasn't been able to reach his wife. And so he wanted him to like go over there and check things out. So Justin agrees and calls for backup, and then goes across the street to the house and finds an open window in the back of the house. And so he's like, I'm going to wait. I'm waiting for backup.
Yeah.
And so when backup does arrive, they enter the house through that window, and the house is like totally quiet, so they know like something's up. And there are huge red spray painted words written all over the walls.
Oh gosh.
One of them says, bitch, you are punished. Another one says, you have paid. There's just stuff everywhere. Like you could, I might post the picture of the walls because it's really creepy.
Okay.
So officers then go upstairs, and they find Chris's wife, Sherry, and two young sons, 11-year-old Garrett and 9-year-old Gavin, dead.
Oh, no.
All three of them had been strangled. Sherry was most likely killed first. It's apparent she fought back, and she had a black eye, defensive wounds, and ligature marks around her neck. Oops, sorry. Both boys showed no signs of struggle. So, of course, they're calling for back, more than just backup. So when Chris came home, he was met with officers and first responders. And he was told outside of the house that, his family didn't make it. And so he sat down on the ground, cried, and then he called up his dad. Joyce Meyer actually showed up. So this is his boss. She showed up around 8 a.m. to offer consolation to Chris.
Yeah.
So detectives are then there. It's a crime scene, and they're looking at the spray painted words on the walls, and they can see that they were related to the emails that were sent to the Joyce Meyer Ministry, and they were also related to the letter that was placed inside the Coleman family's mailbox. There was spray paint not only on the walls but on 9-year-old Gavin and his bed. So it was like writing was on his bed and it was on him.
Jeez.
So it was clear that the killer quickly went through the house and like manically spray painted all these words and sentences. There was spray paint so in the hallway there was a bunch of pictures, and so these words were spray painted, and so spray paint got on the picture frames and stuff, which was actually a good thing for investigators because it made it so much easier to collect it and get a pure sample and analyze it instead of like mixed up with paint on the walls. So of course, Chris, being the last person to see his family alive, he was brought in for questioning. So he informed investigators that he got up early to go to the gym, as he always does. And this is confirmed because his car is seen on the neighbor's security camera, showing that he left the house at like 5:43 a.m. And the neighbor told, another neighbor told police that she had taken out her trash at 1:15 a.m. and didn't notice anything out of the ordinary. So, unfortunately, because, like I said, he was the last person to see his family alive, he was questioned for hours.
Yeah.
His phone and computers were searched, and it was after searching his devices that they discovered that Chris was having an affair.
Oh, gosh.
So during the time that they were interviewing Chris, detectives were on their way to Florida, from Illinois to Florida to talk to his mistress, 31-year-old Tara Lintz. And what is crazy is that Tara and Chris's wife, Sherry, were friends.
Of course they were.
Yeah, in high school. And this is how Chris met Tara. So when Tara was told about the murder, she immediately asked if she needed an attorney. A little suspicious. So they're like, okay, but she didn't really have any information. They couldn't really get much on her. So now detectives are wondering, why did Chris survive if it looks like he's the target in all of this?
Right.
Not just his family, but it was Chris and his family.
It's a ruse.
So while they're looking through his work laptop, they can see a deleted note that he had that had all of Tara's likes and dislikes. Yeah, it's a lot.
They're in the beginning phase of their relationship.
So in that note, they could see that he wrote on November 5th, quote, "The day Tara changed my life." So this is when they're like, okay, they start to bring up the affair to him. He denies it, of course, at first. And then he says, well, I wouldn't classify it as an affair because I didn't want to leave my wife for her and stuff. It's not like that. And so, but
okay.
Tara told investigators another story, and she said that he told her that his wife to Sherry was over and that he was going to get his vasectomy reversed so that they could have a baby when they were together.
Oh.
So he's telling his side chick something else.
Tell me sweet little lies.
So obviously it's showing something different from what Chris is saying.
Yeah.
So detectives are thinking that, okay, he probably killed his wife and children in order to end his marriage because of where he works. Maybe he would lose his job for getting divorced, due to adultery, since it's a Christian ministry. So they find out then that Sherry, his wife, had actually suspected that her husband was having an affair because Chris's demeanor had changed. And she had told a friend, quote, "If something happens to me, Chris did it."
Oh, gosh.
And a friend also shared a text message that she had from Sherry saying, quote, "Chris wants a divorce." So it looks like their marriage was...
He obviously brought it up.
So this is when investigators are now turning to think, okay, is he a family annihilator? So a family annihilator is just as it sounds. It's someone who kills their entire family. Or majority of the members in the family. So family annihilator experts started looking into the case since, there are clear signs that you can tell in a case to determine if they are a family annihilator or not. Yeah. So in general, many family annihilators convince themselves that murder is more loving to the family rather than ripping their life apart. So I don't want my children to grow up in a divorced, broken family. My wife's going to be devastated, whatever. Let's just kill him and start fresh.
That'll do it.
Really do believe this. And not only that, they think that they can get away with it. This is documented, a documented pattern. It's been proven. So when Chris's family was discovered, this is where the forensics get into it.
Okay.
And you'll follow. When his family was found, they were in rigor mortis. So in general, rigor mortis doesn't set in until about 2 hours after death. And looking at the timeline of when he left his house and then when their bodies were found was about an hour, hour or less, maybe a little over an hour, not 2 to 3 hours where rigor sets in. So, detectives asked Chris, quote, because you could see this all in the interview. Quote, "When you left the house this morning, was your wife alive?" Chris says, I don't know. Don't know what to tell you. I mean, I think she was.
What?
And,
I think.
And
what?
Yeah. And
you'd be like,
she
yes.
was. Yeah. And she was laying right beside me. So looking at the bodies, their estimated time of death was determined to be about 3 a.m.
Let me tell you, almost every single night I walk in the room, I was like, Kurt looks dead. Marlene, because he's breathing so shallow. I'm like, how do you... I think I was laying next to a dead person. Come on now.
Have you seen that where it's like, why does my husband sleep like a dying Victorian child? That's Jack constantly. I'm like, is he dead? And then
Kurt gets so pale in his sleep. Yes. And I'm like, what is happening?
So I think you would know if your wife was dead when you get up at 5 a.m.
Pretty
to go
sure.
to the gym. So since their death was determined to be at 3 a.m., they're like, So since Chris was so adamant with the timeline of his whereabouts that morning, this puts him in the house at the time of their murders. So how would his wife have died at 3 a.m. if he's just sleeping next to her and then his boys get murdered? So they tell him they know that she wasn't alive when he left the house, and he's still denying it. Wow. It's like, it's forensic science. You can't
seriously,
we know their time of death. And obviously, this is not irrefutable evidence. So they need to look at other evidence that they have in the case. So they start looking at the spray paint. And they were able to determine the brand of spray paint was Rust-Oleum in the color candy apple red. So you could picture how red all of the writing is.
They wanted it to look like blood.
Probably,
bright.
Yeah. So they then look at credit card purchases for Chris. And they can see that he bought this exact spray paint at a hardware store on February 9th at 1:46 p.m.
What a dipshit.
Yeah. So this still isn't enough because think of how many other people could have also bought this paint.
Yeah. He could have bought it for a project and someone broke in and stole it and used it. The person that's just looking around like, I'm going to smear ketchup or whatever.
Yeah. So
circumstantial doesn't mean it.
Okay, so they have, this spray paint. Okay, we got to keep looking. So they then look at the threatening emails and the letter. Forensic linguist Robert Leonard is brought in to help with this part of the investigation. So this was really cool. So Robert Leonard was an original member of the rock band Sha-Na-Na, who were an opening act at Woodstock.
Fun. And
he became interested in linguistics when he got signed on to a record company, and then they weren't getting the amount of money that they thought like we should be getting more. And so he went to their lawyers and his dad, and they told him to read the contract. And that is when it's like he started getting interested in the way that things are said.
Oh, yeah. And loopholes that make it sound like you're agreeing to one thing.
Yeah, you change the wording and stuff. And so that's where he like really got interested in it because, words mean a lot when you put them in a certain context.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
for sure.
yeah, I know, right? So that is basically how it started for him, which I thought was kind of cool. So in this case, he used what is called KQ analysis. The K stands for documents in which the writer is known, and Q stands for the documents where the authorship is in question.
Okay.
So basically, you compare the documents that the person wrote to the one that I think they wrote this one. So looking at Chris's writings before the murders, he could see that Chris often would misplace the apostrophe in many words. So the person who wrote the threats did the same thing. So words like don't, won't, and doesn't would have the apostrophe at the end of the word. So the very end of the word.
And of course, you and I are like,
I know. You know how hard it was to like not pay attention to the typos when I'm typing this up?
Oh my gosh. Dumb spelling.
This specific thing with the apostrophe is called apostrophe reversal, and it's actually really rare. So that's like, okay, we got one thing. Another common connection was the misspelling of fused words. So some of the words misspelled were book tour, good time, anyway, sometime, and they were written as one word instead of two.
I mess up on contractions too.
I do
sometimes.
Yeah, and so it's in the way that the sentence, the proper way it should be. He's always
it's going to match up exactly the same way.
All these words, book tour was written as one. All these words were written as one word instead of two. So the biggest comparison with both Chris's documents and the threatening documents was the misspelling of the word opportunity.
Oh, okay.
Was always spelled OPPUR instead of OR. Yeah, opportunity. So this proved that Chris was the one who wrote all the letters. You can't the fact of the apostrophe reversal, the fused words, the misspelling of a specific word.
Even if you're trying to copy it, you're not going to be perfect. And they're doing it the same way because it's how their brain is.
Yes. So it's 3 different things that are all identical. So it's kind of like, okay, he clearly wrote the emails and the letter.
Right.
So on May 19th, 2009, Chris Coleman was arrested at his parents' home in Chester, Illinois. Then on April 25th in 2011 in Waterloo, Illinois, the trial began. And this is where it was revealed that Chris Coleman had sent the threatening emails and the letter and then spent 6 months planning the murder of his family. A forensic analyst testified that the threatening emails were sent from his own laptop, where he used his login information to get access into the computer right before the emails were sent. It's him. Gives me goosebumps. It makes me sick to my stomach because the same neighbor's security camera that caught Chris leaving the house the morning of the murders caught video of Chris just the day before the murders playing catch with his sons. And he had actually taken the day off the day before the murders
to spend more time with them.
And they suspect that he did this to spend one last day together with his sons. And this is where I really it's disgusting because Joyce Myers testified at his trial that Chris was a dedicated employee, so much so that he didn't miss a day of work in 11 years until May 4th, which was the day before the murder. So he's not one that would call in sick or just like, oh, I can't come in today.
I'm going to spend more time with my kids.
Before I kill him. So she said that she didn't know about the affair and then went on to say that she actually employs people who have been divorced. So like divorce would have caused him to lose his job.
It was just his excuse.
Maybe an affair, like, but a divorce, it's like,
but
couples divorce all the time.
Right? The whole basis is forgiveness. So, I mean, people can change you if you want to prove that you want to change.
Yeah.
So what a dumb it's just an excuse.
It is. So
I'm going to lose my job. So I'm going to kill everyone. I'm pretty sure murder is a worse sin than adultery.
Exactly. So,
especially if you're children. Like, come on.
Right. Your whole family. So Tara Lintz testified and said that their affair started in November 2008. And she said that Chris was planning on leaving his wife and serving her with divorce papers on May 4th or 5th. And the murders happened on the 5th. And she said he was like serious with her. He gave her a promise ring and everything. So at trial, prosecutors present the story of what they think happened. They state that Chris waited until everyone was asleep. He killed his wife first. Evidence showed she fought back. Then once she was dead, he went and strangled his sons. And they did not struggle, but why would they? It's their dad.
They probably are just like, what is happening?
Then he spray painted the threats, and that was a way to throw off police. And the paint could be traced through him through credit card statements. He then opened up the back window as if like, ooh, that's how the killer could get in. And then he left for the gym to form an alibi. And what he didn't think about was the fact that rigor mortis would set in and their bodies would show what time they had died. And his alibi and timeline of events just pinned him to the house at the time of the murders. And because he had such a huge ego, he clearly thought he could throw off police and get away with murder.
It's ridiculous. Can you imagine being so stupid, thinking you're so smart?
Yeah, seriously. And that's, I think, with a lot of these
as if the whole thing isn't stupid. It's just like unbelievable.
So he just wanted to end his like current life and start over.
How many? I mean, women have done it too, but how many of these are this bullshit?
It is just like, I want to start over. I don't want to be a family man anymore. Whatever. So
that seems like the biggest, hugest, like, bitch thing to do. Like,
right.
Just leave your family, send them money. If you give a crap so much and you want to just restart your life over, pay for their life. Don't ever talk to them. You're going to give them, they're going to need therapy, but their mom would rather explain to them that you suck than you killed them. Like, what the hell?
I can't even imagine what was going through their heads at that time. So on May 5th, 2011, on the 2-year anniversary of the murders, after 15 hours of deliberation over 2 days, Chris Coleman was found guilty of 3 counts of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. Even after all of the evidence and his conviction, Chris still claims that he isn't the killer.
Of course.
So he can continue to just play the role of the victim. But it's clear he killed his entire family.
A complete narcissist.
Yeah. He, like I said, he had a big ego. He thought he could get away with it. And I don't know. I just was like, wow. As I was researching this, I was like, oh my gosh, I remember hearing about this. And I can't remember if I heard about it in real time or if I heard about it like through another podcast or an episode of something.
I don't think I've heard of this so far.
Oh, really? But yeah, I think it was.
The name sounds so familiar, but like
Coleman's kind of a familiar, and Chris is
the
like,
name in general.
Yeah.
Because that other guy that other guy just recently with his wife, and she was pregnant and the 2 babies, and he like
Lacey. No, that not.
But you know,
no, I know.
His name was Chris too, though, wasn't it?
I think so. I know exactly who you're talking about. I have too many names in my head right now.
Too many men who kill their whole families because they have a mistress.
Yeah.
And again, I'm like, the thing is, she is not culpable for the choices that he made or anything. But can you imagine being like making that decision that I'm going to start a relationship with a married dude, and that's what he does?
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm sure they would have found evidence if she had any part of convincing him or anything.
I was going to say she had no connection.
Yeah. So she's just a dirtbag. Yeah. She's just a normal dirtbag for being a home wrecker. She knew he was married. But like, can you having that guilt forever? Like, I was with this psycho and he killed his whole family because he thought that's what it was going to take.
Yeah.
Like, that's not her fault, but it's that having to live with that, make better choices, people.
Yeah. And, I won't go into specifics, but I have a relative who basically escaped that because he went on to kill his family. Yeah. So
yikes.
I have a relative that escaped that. I'll tell you after this.
Oh boy.
I'm not telling everybody else. But yeah. So I don't know, and I feel like I feel so bad for her friends that knew like something was off, but you just don't think that this.
No, you're going to get a divorce like Christian 60% of the rest of the population. You're not going to get murdered by your spouse because it's not working out.
Yeah.
And they want to move on. I promise. Just divorce them. Your life, you'll figure it out. Yeah. Everybody will be fine if they're alive.
Yeah.
God.
May feel like the end of the world, but that's the end of. Yeah. Well, he's in prison for life, so he's not going to.
End of his world.
Yep. End of his.
Other people that had no reason.
Yeah.
You think that woman's ever going to trust a man again?
Oh, I don't know. That would be so hard.
No dude would be like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Hell no.
I know. And that's the thing is like nothing in his past would indicate that he would be capable of doing this. Think about it. He grew up with a pastor for a father. He was in the military. He was the head, security for a Christian ministry. And it's like the person you would not suspect. And I think with all of that is why he probably thought he could get away with it. Because he's like, why would they suspect me? I'm a great guy.
Yeah, I've never done anything. And then you're also like, what have you gotten away with?
Yeah, I know.
Like lower tier, lower tier, not murder.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So, yeah. So that was.
It's only a matter of time.
That was it. Yeah.
That was sad.
Yeah, it really was.
That was sad.
Yeah, it was really sad. And I'll show you the picture of the boys. They're so cute. But yeah, I'll obviously post a picture of Sherry with her boys and then his dumb face without, no family picture. It's the mama and her boys. So as a parent, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine like what was going through her head thinking, what's he going to do next? Like, well, he's killing me.
Has he already? Or is he going to
at 3 a.m? I'm dead asleep. Like when we had the leak in the roof because we had huge storms that came through, and we ended up with a leak in our roof in Troy and Avery's room, and apparently Troy came in at like 12:30 at night trying to tell me that there was a leak in the roof. I don't remember, and Jack got mad because I was like, it's fine, it's nothing, and I rolled over and went back to sleep. I'm like dead to the world when I go to bed, and
I'm not.
Yeah, and so I can't even imagine being woken up out of a dead sleep to like, what is happening,
Yeah.
But okay, I don't want to talk about it anymore. I have chills. So with that, stay crafty
and not cry me.
Bye.